For any form of democracy to be successful, it has to be indigenized for the people to develop a sense of voluntary participation and ownership, particularly of the decisions, actions, and institutions that directly affect their lives. The public officials who run such institutions must as well be accountable to the people, in whose name and on whose behalf they exercise their mandate.
In a real development-oriented government, the president is not the master of the people, he's a servant of the people. He has to do what the people want him to do for the benefit of the people. That's democracy.
Within the past 16 years, more tangible aspects of the country's development process have been documented. From health to agriculture, education to infrastructure, communications to energy, the records are there for all to see. However, what has not been equally documented are the less tangible but equally important development strides registered in the areas of governance, including the country's democratic institutions and practices.
We have seen tremendous changes from the advent of the revolution to now in terms of institutional creation. So many institutions were created after the advent of AFPRC and now APRC that were not here during the First Republic. And these are key governance institutions. Like I said in the definition, governance involved institutions, processes, and mechanisms. So in terms of institutions and other processes, a lot has been changed from the advent of the APRC to now.
The 1997 Constitution provides for the separation of powers, where the executive, legislature, and judiciary work harmoniously but independently. The separation of powers, amongst other things, guarantees the necessary checks and balances in democracy. These reforms are informed by the need to strengthen the country's fledgling democratic institutions and conduct within the overall context of a system of governance committed to the values of accountability, transparency, and probity, inspired at the highest level of government. Within the first few weeks of the new administration taking over, commissions of inquiry were set up to probe the conduct of public officials and institutions. The move was part of a crusade to clean the system as a matter of urgency. The Jammeh administration was convinced that economic development and social justice go hand in hand.
For the development of this country, I will not compromise. Singapore and others have developed because they have never compromised, and I'm not going to compromise.
The 1997 Constitution provides for the creation of important oversight institutions for the first time ever. These institutions, which include the Independent Electoral Commission, the Office of the Ombudsman, and the National Council on Civic Education, have since been up and running, with clear-cut mandates and terms of reference. Created by an act of the National Assembly, the National Council on Civic Education is mandated to inform and educate the citizenry on their rights, duties, and responsibilities within the overall context of national development.
And in fact, the Constitution brought about these key institutions. That is the National Council for Civic Education, which you will find under Section 198 and 99 of the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia, the Office of the Ombudsman, the Independent Electoral Commission, Section 42. These are key and very important institutions in the governance process of each country. Very few African countries have institutionalized civic education as a national program. So this is a very big credit to the Second Republic and to the Revolution. The creation of a national institution to inform the citizenry of their basic rights, their duties and responsibilities, and how they could participate in taking a lead in deciding matters that affect their lives.
The Independent Electoral Commission was also established by an act of the National Assembly. Its mandate is, amongst other things, to conduct elections and referenda, as well as voter political education as an independent oversight institution.
In the First Republic, the Independent Electoral Commission wasn't here. Elections were administered by a Department of State. That's government itself running elections. Now, the revolution brought, for the first time in this country, that elections are being managed by an independent autonomous institution. Now, this is also a very big achievement because elections we have started seeing around the world, and it has been here ever since. They are very important. You cannot downplay the importance of elections. But also, elections are also a recipe for violence if they are not properly managed and handled. And one of the sources of problems that emanates from election is when people lack the confidence in the process, the impartiality of whoever is managing elections. Now, setting of an independent agency specializing in election administration is a very important step taken in the governance process of this country, because it will restore the confidence of the participants and all the stakeholders in the process. And we have seen since the advent of the Second Republic, our elections have been very smooth. You cannot say it is violent-free 100%. That doesn't happen anywhere. But comparatively to what we see in other countries, elections in the Gambia are generally very, very peaceful, and they are considered free and fair.
The playground, many were convinced, could never have been leveled.
You campaign freely, sell your manifesto without any hindrance or any problem. If we give a political party A 10 minutes to the television, we'll give B 10 minutes to the station 2. They all go out and sell their manifestos. At the end, the date is fixed for the election. Nomination is done to all political parties that want to stand for that election, like the presidential election. And then on election day, all the political parties has their agents in all polling stations, counting centers, collation, and the main office where the chairman will declare the results. Their agents will be there. They have to satisfy everything, sign everything. This is why election in the Gambia is always free and fair.
Establishing the office of the Ombudsman as an administrative oversight body also points to the government's resolve to entrench the culture of good governance within the civil and public service delivery system.
When an individual has a problem with the whole Department of State, this is a single individual versus the whole machinery of a state. If there is no independent and impartial person to look into the issue, to decide whether the interests and the rights of the individual were wrongly trampled upon or otherwise, you see, usually the outcome, it doesn't favor the employees. And when employees' rights are being continuously trampled upon, it leads to dissatisfaction, low performance, and you can name them. So the creation of the Office of the Ombudsman also is a very, very big achievement in the area of administrative governance for the Second Republic.
The body has a broad mandate to investigate and recommend redress measures in disputes between employees and employers in public institutions and public enterprises.
During the First Republic, this institution did not exist. That created a very serious lapse, a very big gap, because if I would refer to our mandate, which covers all public institutions, the ministries, government departments, parastatals, and all institutions, organizations in which government has some interest. Bearing this in mind and taking into account that, well, there is no human institution that is perfect. So we do have errors, we do have problems, problems of administration, mismanagement, and in those days there was nowhere that you could go to seek redress.
The 1997 Constitution reduced the voting age from 21 to 18 years, a provision that has enfranchised a cross-section of the youth population. This is a broad-based and more inclusive approach to governance and participatory democracy.